The studio is a void, swallowed by shadows, save for a single spotlight slicing through the darkness. A microphone stands alone, its silver glint catching the light. A voice breaks the silence, low, trembling, unmistakable. It's Beyoncé. Her words spill out, heavy with a weight that feels like years in the making. I trusted him, and he used that trust to control me. The audio crackles, her voice laced with pain, hinting at a betrayal by someone towering in the industry. Sean Combs, Diddy, the man who seemed untouchable, then static. The sound cuts off, abrupt, like a secret yanked back into the dark. Images flicker across the screen. Diddy's parties, champagne flutes clinking under chandeliers, A-listers laughing in a haze of opulence. Then, Beyoncé, poised, radiant, her smile a fortress. Headlines flash. Diddy's empire reigns supreme. Beyoncé, queen of everything. But something lingers behind the gloss. A shadow, a whisper, a truth clawing to break free. What happens when the untouchable fall? When the music stops and the spotlight burns too bright to hide the lies? This story isn't just a headline. It's a labyrinth of power, betrayal, and courage. A warning, this video contains sensitive themes: manipulation, abuse, and the dark underbelly of an industry built on dreams. Viewer discretion is advised. What you're about to hear will shake you. It will make you question the icons you've loved, the empires you've celebrated. 1 minute ago, the world changed. One voice rose above the silence. The music world bows to few, but Sean Combs, Diddy, stands as a colossus. He's the architect of Bad Boy Records, the man who turned beats into empires. With a grin that disarms and a hustle that never quits, he reshaped hip-hop in the 90s, launching legends like Notorious B.I.G., and building a legacy that's as much about flash as it is about power. 3 Grammy Awards line his shelves, his fashion line. Sean John redefined urban style. And his parties? They're the stuff of legend. Glittering nights where Hollywood and hip-hop collide under his watchful eye. Headlines crown him. Diddy's empire expands. The king of cool. Fans on X gush. Diddy's the blueprint. Nobody does it bigger. To the world, he's untouchable. A kingmaker who turns dreams into gold. But behind the charisma, there's a shadow, a whisper of control, a grip too tight, a smile that doesn't always reach his eyes. Enter Beyoncé Knowles Carter, the untarnished queen. She's not just a superstar, she's a movement. 32 Grammy wins, a record that cements her as a titan. From Destiny's Child to Lemonade, she's crafted an image of empowerment, precision, and grace under pressure. Her voice carries the weight of anthems. Her performances are masterclasses in control. Beyoncé is perfection, a fan tweets, echoing millions. Headlines scream, Queen Bey reigns supreme, a cultural force. Her philanthropy, her business savvy with Ivy Park, her flawless family image with Jay-Z. It's a fortress of untouchable brilliance. Yet there's a guardedness to her, a flicker of steel behind the warmth. In interviews, her answers are measured, her smile a shield. She's adored but distant, as if protecting something the world can't see. Together, Diddy and Beyoncé are pillars of a cultural pantheon, their names synonymous with success. Diddy, the mogul who bends the industry to his will. Beyoncé, the icon who seems to transcend it. Fans see them as invincible, their legacies bulletproof. But beneath the surface, cracks form. Diddy's charm carries an edge. Stories of his temper, his demands, linger in industry whispers. Beyoncé's perfection feels hard-won, her silence on certain topics louder than her songs. The world sees royalty, but royalty hides secrets. What happens when the kingmaker's crown slips? When the queen's silence breaks? The stage is set, and the truth is waiting in the wings. Sean Combs, born in Harlem, 1969, was a kid with big dreams and bigger ambition. Raised by a single mother after his father's murder, he hustled early. Paper routes, street smarts, a fire to rise above. By the late 80s, he was an intern at Uptown Records, soaking up the game, learning how to bend it to his will. At 22, he founded Bad Boy Records, a label that would redefine hip-hop. Signing Christopher Wallace, Notorious B.I.G., was his masterstroke, turning gritty rhymes into chart-topping anthems. Bad Boy's sound, slick and unapologetic, dominated the 90s. Diddy's charisma was magnetic, his business acumen surgical. He wasn't just a producer, he was a brand, a lifestyle, a mogul in the making. But red flags flickered early. The 1999 nightclub shooting in New York, where Diddy and then protege Shine were implicated, left whispers of his untouchability. Acquitted, he walked away, but the incident painted a picture, a man who could skirt consequences, whose power seemed to outrun accountability. Industry insiders murmured about his ruthlessness. Deals that favored him, artists left in the dust. Diddy doesn't play fair, a former Bad Boy artist hinted in a 2000 interview, voice low, eyes wary. Across the country, a young Beyoncé Knowles was carving her own path, but hers was paved with pressure. Born in Houston, 1981, she was a prodigy, singing before she could read. By 9, she was fronting Girls' Time, a group molded by her father, Matthew Knowles, a man with a vision as relentless as it was exacting. His management was both a gift and a chain, pushing Beyoncé toward greatness, but demanding perfection. Destiny's Child, formed in the mid-90s, became her launchpad, their harmonies tight, their image polished to a gleam. Yet the grind was brutal. Rehearsals stretched into the night. Every misstep was critiqued. "I didn't have a childhood," Beyoncé later admitted in a rare unguarded moment. The industry embraced her talent but also its claws. Executives who saw a young black girl as a product, not a person. As Destiny's Child rose, they crossed paths with gatekeepers like Diddy, whose bad boy empire loomed large. At industry events, his presence was inescapable. Charming, commanding, always watching. A 1999 awards show after party, glittering with stars, saw Beyoncé, barely 18, navigating rooms where power dynamics hung heavy. Diddy's smile was warm, but his words carried weight. "You're going to be big, but you need the right people." Uneasy alliances formed, unspoken deals lingered. Both were climbing, but the paths diverged. Diddy's ascent was marked by control over artists, narratives, even the vibe of a room. Stories swirled, contracts that bound too tightly, tempers that flared behind closed doors. Beyoncé's rise, meanwhile, was a balancing act. Her father's grip shielded her from some predators, but left her vulnerable to others. Industry titans who offered opportunities with strings attached. Her encounters with Diddy's circle were fleeting but charged. Moments where ambition met influence, and influence demanded loyalty. By the early 2000s, as Beyoncé went solo with Dangerously in Love, she was a star, but the toll of perfectionism showed. Guarded smiles, careful words. Diddy, meanwhile, was untouchable, his empire expanding into fashion, vodka, TV. Yet the whispers grew louder. Artists who felt used, deals that felt like traps. For Beyoncé, one memory lingered, a conversation, a contract, a moment where Diddy's charm felt like a mask. The seeds of betrayal were sown, buried deep, waiting for the day they'd break through. The air was thick with opulence, the kind that clings to your skin like perfume. In 2002, Diddy's annual White Party in the Hamptons was the epicenter of glamour. Celebrities draped in ivory silk, champagne flutes catching the glow of chandeliers, laughter echoing over manicured lawns. This was Diddy's world, a curated spectacle where power and pleasure intertwined. Sean Combs, at the height of his influence, wasn't just hosting, he was orchestrating. His parties were legendary, exclusive, the kind of events where careers were made or broken in a single conversation. But beneath the dazzle, whispers circulated. Former bad boy artists spoke in hushed tones about late-night meetings, promises that came with unspoken costs. "You don't say no to Diddy," a backup dancer once muttered, eyes darting. The parties were a stage, but the real deals happened in the shadows. Back rooms, private booths, where smiles masked calculations. Beyoncé, then 21, was on the cusp of solo stardom. Dangerously in Love was in the works, her breakout moment looming. But the industry was a labyrinth, and Diddy was one of its gatekeepers. Bad Boy's influence stretched far. Radio play, collaborations, award show slots. To be in his orbit was to feel both anointed and ensnared. At that 2002 White Party, Beyoncé arrived, radiant but cautious, her Destiny's Child polish giving way to a solo artist's ambition. The night was a blur of flashbulbs and handshakes. But one moment stood out. Diddy, in a crisp white suit, pulled her aside, his voice smooth as velvet. "You're the future, B, but you need the right push." His smile was warm, but his eyes held something else. A weight, a warning. He spoke of a collaboration, a Bad Boy-backed single that could guarantee her album's dominance. The offer sparkled, but the terms felt like a leash. Flashback to a dimly lit Manhattan office months earlier. Beyoncé, flanked by her father Matthew, sat across from Diddy and his team. Papers lay on the table, contract addendums, vague clauses about mutual promotion. Her pen hovered, her gaze flickering to Matthew, whose jaw tightened. Diddy's tone was all charm, but his words pressed. This is how it works at the top. Trust me, I've got you. The deal promised exposure, but it demanded loyalty. Control over her image, her sound, her choices. Beyoncé's hesitation was fleeting, a shadow across her face, but she signed. The room exhaled, but something in her chest tightened. She was young, hungry, and the industry taught her to bend to survive. Back at the party, the memory lingered. Beyoncé sipped her drink, watching Diddy glide through the crowd, his laughter booming, his hand lingering too long on a young artist's shoulder. Another flashback, a late-night studio session, Diddy's voice on speakerphone, sharp and insistent, dictating changes to a track she'd poured her soul into. This is what sells, he'd said, dismissing her protests. The control wasn't just professional, it was personal, a subtle erosion of her voice. She overheard whispers that night, other artists trading stories of Diddy's favors, opportunities that came with strings, debts that never seemed to clear. One young singer, eyes hollow, murmured about a party that went too far. Beyoncé's stomach churned. She excused herself, heels clicking on marble as she stepped into the night, the ocean's roar drowning out the music. The betrayal wasn't a single moment but a slow poison. Diddy's influence over her early solo career wasn't just guidance, it was a power play. The deal she'd signed gave Bad Boy sway over her promotions, tying her to his empire in ways she didn't fully grasp. When Crazy in Love soared, the world saw her triumph. But behind closed doors, Diddy's team took credit, their fingerprints on her success. A clause in the contract, buried in fine print, gave them leverage over her tour bookings, her media appearances. She'd catch Diddy's name in meetings, his approval needed for decisions that should have been hers. And then there was the party culture, those glittering nights where young artists, especially women, navigated a minefield of expectations. Beyoncé saw too much, heard too much, felt the weight of silence pressing down. The suspense builds in fragments, her pen pausing over that contract, Diddy's voice dropping low as he promised the world, the flicker of fear in another artist's eyes. She carried these moments, locked them away, her smile never faltering in public. But the truth was a splinter under her skin, growing sharper with every step toward stardom. Diddy's empire thrived on control, and Beyoncé, like so many, had been caught in its orbit. The world saw her rise, but she felt the cost. Every choice shadowed by his influence, every victory tinged with compromise. The stage was set for a reckoning, but the truth would wait, simmering, until she found the strength to speak. The spotlight never dims for Beyoncé, but in the quiet of her home, the weight of silence crushed her. After signing that deal with Diddy's Bad Boy empire in 2002, she felt his shadow in every room, every decision, every interview, every performance. The world saw a queen ascending with Dangerously in Love, her 2003 solo debut that swept 5 Grammys. But behind the curtain, Beyoncé was unraveling. Sleepless nights became her ritual, her mind replaying that Hamptons party, Diddy's velvet threats, the contract's fine print that tethered her to his influence. She journaled in the dark, her pen scratching out fears she couldn't voice. What if I speak? What will it cost me? The pressure to maintain her flawless image, empowered, untouchable, was a cage. In interviews, she deflected, her answers polished but hollow. I'm just focused on the music, she'd say, smiling, while her heart raced with unspoken truths. She feared the industry's wrath, Diddy's reach, the risk of being labeled a troublemaker. Isolation crept in, peers kept their distance, sensing her guardedness. She'd sit alone at award shows, her laughter a mask, while whispers of Diddy's control circulated among those too scared to speak. Her career pivoted subtly, a dance to reclaim her voice. She pushed for more creative control, writing songs like Single Ladies that screamed independence. But the effort was exhausting. Every move felt like defiance against an invisible leash. Therapy became her sanctuary, a place to unpack the guilt of staying silent, the shame of feeling complicit. I was so young, she told her therapist, voice breaking. I didn't know how to say no. Her team, led by her mother Tina, now more than Matthew, shielded her from Diddy's orbit, but the scars lingered. She avoided Bad Boy events, declined collaborations tied to his name, each choice a quiet rebellion. Yet the cost was steep. lost deals, strained industry ties. A major tour sponsor hesitated when Diddy's team advised against her, a subtle flex of his lingering power. Beyoncé's strength was her armor, but it was cracking, her private pain a stark contrast to the goddess on stage. Meanwhile, Diddy's empire soared, untouched by the whispers. Bad Boy expanded into Ciroc vodka, reality TV, and fashion, his grin plastered across billboards. He was the kingmaker, untouchable, his parties still the industry's beating heart, but cracks were forming. Former artists, Faith Evans, Mace, dropped cryptic hints in interviews, their words vague but heavy. Not everyone leaves Bad Boy whole. A 2005 lawsuit from a lesser-known signee alleged coercive contracts quickly settled, buried in the news cycle. Insiders spoke off-record, their voices low. Diddy doesn't lose. He makes sure of it. His dominance was a fortress, but the whispers grew louder, a chorus of discontent from those he'd lifted and discarded. Yet he showed no vulnerability. His Instagram, a parade of yachts and toasts, his denial of performance as polished as his suits. Beneath it, though, guilt flickered. A sleepless night here, a defensive snap there. A man who knew the truth was catching up. Beyoncé's pain was private, etched in tear-stained journals, in therapy sessions where she questioned her silence. I built this image to protect myself, she wrote, but it's a prison. Her public strength, those flawless performances, that radiant smile, was a lie she lived for the world. She felt complicit, her success tied to a deal that cost her autonomy. Diddy, meanwhile, buried his guilt under bravado, but it seeped through. A 2006 interview saw him bristle when asked about Bad Boy's reputation, his laugh too sharp, his eyes dodging the camera. The industry watched, waiting, as the two titans moved in parallel, one wrestling with silence, the other with secrets. Beyoncé's isolation deepened. She trusted fewer, her circle shrinking to family, her music her only outlet. Diddy's power held firm, but the whispers were becoming shouts, and the truth was a tide he couldn't hold back. For Beyoncé, every step forward was a battle to reclaim her voice, every song a plea for freedom. The stage was set for a reckoning, the weight of their choices pulling them toward a collision. The clock struck midnight, March 2025, when the world paused. Beyoncé, the queen who spoke in anthems, chose a quieter stage, an Instagram Live, her face lit only by the glow of her phone. Her voice, usually a force of nature, was soft, trembling with resolve. I've carried this for too long, she said, eyes locked on the camera. He used his power to control me, to shape my path when I was too young to know better. The audio was raw, unpolished, a confession that felt like a wound laid bare. She referenced a moment from 2002, a contract, a party, a promise that became a chain. Sean Combs made me believe I owed him my success, she said, her words slicing through the silence. The live cut off abruptly, but not before the internet erupted. Screenshots flooded X, fans dissecting every syllable, every pause. Beyoncé Speaks trended within minutes, headlines screaming, Beyoncé drops bombshell on Diddy. The media scrambled, outlets racing to parse her words, while the industry held its breath, knowing a titan was naming another. Flashback to weeks earlier, in the quiet of her Los Angeles home, Beyoncé sat at her desk, a journal open, pages filled with years of unspoken pain. Her decision to speak wasn't sudden, it was a war waged within. She'd weighed the cost, her legacy, her family, the empire she'd built. If I stay silent, I'm complicit, she whispered to Jay-Z, who nodded, his own history with Diddy a tangled thread. She thought of the young artists still navigating the industry's shadows, the ones who might face what she did. The memory of that 2002 white party burned. Diddy's voice, smooth but steely, dictating terms. The contract that gave Bad Boy control over her early solo career. The nights she felt her voice wasn't her own. She recorded the audio in one take, her heart pounding, knowing it would change everything. This is for me, she told herself, and for them. She pressed go live, and the truth spilled out. A dam breaking after 2 decades. The leak sent shockwaves. X lit up with reactions. Beyoncé just ended Diddy, one user posted, while another wrote, she's so brave, but what's the full story? Fans clipped the audio, analyzing her tone, her pauses, the way her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Media outlets ran wild. Variety called it the expose of the decade. TMZ dug for dirt, unearthing old Bad Boy contracts. The tension was palpable, a storm gathering. Anonymous voices began to surface. Artists who'd orbited Diddy's empire. A former bad boy backup singer tweeted, then deleted, "She's not the only one." A producer, face blurred in a YouTube interview, hinted at deals you couldn't refuse. These whispers, once buried, grew louder, amplifying Beyoncé's courage. The industry felt the tremor. Executives who'd turned a blind eye now faced scrutiny. Collaborators who'd praised Diddy fell silent. Beyoncé's revelation wasn't just a moment, it was a fracture in the music world's facade. Other artists, still anonymous, began sharing cryptic posts, Instagram stories with black screens, captions like, "The truth will out." A female rapper, voice disguised on a podcast, spoke of a mogul who demanded everything. The stakes rose with every hint, each voice a thread in a tapestry of reckoning. Beyoncé, watching from her home, felt the weight lift, but also the fear. Her legacy was on the line, her vulnerability now public. The audio had been a spark, igniting a fire she couldn't control. Diddy, meanwhile, was cornered, his empire wobbling under the glare. His team issued a statement. Sean Combs denies any wrongdoing, but it rang hollow, a deflection too late to stem the tide. The truth, long buried, was bubbling to the surface, and the world was watching, waiting for the next voice to break the silence. The studio was a crucible, the air thick with anticipation. It was April 2025, and Beyoncé sat across from Oprah Winfrey on a Netflix special, the cameras capturing every flicker of her expression. The set was minimalist. 2 chairs, a low table, a world watching. Beyoncé's hands rested in her lap, steady, but her eyes burned with a fire that had been smoldering for decades. "I stayed silent too long," she said, her voice a blade, cutting through the hush. "Sean Combs used his power to control me, to make me feel my success depended on him." She recounted the 2002 deal, the contract that gave Bad Boy sway over her early solo career. Her voice, her image, her choices. "He made me believe I owed him," she said, her words raw, unscripted. "I was 21, trying to find my way, and he exploited that." The audience, invisible but palpable, leaned in, the weight of her vulnerability a shared heartbeat. She spoke of the white party, the late-night calls, the subtle threats dressed as advice. "I saw others suffer too," she added, her gaze unwavering. "I won't be silent anymore." The tension was courtroom-like, each word a gavel strike. Close-ups caught Beyoncé's resolute face, her jaw set, her eyes glistening but unyielding. Her thoughts churned. "This is my truth, and it's enough." She knew the cost. Her image, her legacy, the risk of being branded a betrayer in an industry that prized loyalty. But her courage was a flame, fed by years of suppressed pain, by the faces of others who'd whispered their own stories to her in private. Oprah nodded, her own presence a quiet anchor, amplifying the moment's gravity. The camera lingered, the silence as loud as Beyoncé's words, a testament to the power of a queen reclaiming her voice. Across the city, Diddy watched from his Manhattan penthouse, his phone buzzing with alerts. His team scrambled, releasing a statement within hours. Sean Combs categorically denies these baseless allegations and remains committed to his legacy of innovation. Polished, predictable, it landed like a hollow note, but cracks showed. A rare interview on a morning show, meant to deflect, betrayed him. His smile was tight, his eyes darting. A nervous glance to his publicist off camera. "I've always uplifted artists," he said, but his voice faltered, a tremor betraying the fear beneath. His thoughts raced. How many others will speak? How long can I hold this together? The man who'd built an empire on control felt it slipping, the weight of scrutiny pressing down. Ex-post caught his unease, fans noting, "Diddy looks shook, something's off." The confrontation wasn't just Beyoncé's words, it was the ripple they caused. Other artists, still cloaked in anonymity, echoed her on social media, cryptic posts hinting at their own encounters. A former Bad Boy producer tweeted, "Truth is heavy, more will come." The industry, once a fortress of silence, felt the walls trembling. Beyoncé's testimony was a beacon, her vulnerability a call to others. She sat back in her chair, exhaling, the weight of 2 decades lifting, if only slightly. Diddy, meanwhile, paced his penthouse, his empire's shine dimming under the glare of her truth. The moment wasn't just a clash of titans, it was a reckoning, a single voice breaking open a long-sealed vault. The world watched, breathless, as the fallout loomed, knowing this was only the beginning. The internet ignited within hours of Beyoncé's Netflix special in April 2025. Headlines erupted like wildfire. Beyoncé's bombshell rocks music industry, screamed Rolling Stone. Queen Bey calls out Diddy's dark side, blared Billboard. X became a battleground. Hashtags Diddy exposed and Beyoncé speaks trending globally, amassing millions of posts. Fans flooded the platform, their reactions a kaleidoscope of shock and solidarity. Beyoncé is fearless. I'm heartbroken she went through this, one user posted, garnering thousands of likes. Others felt betrayed, grappling with their idolization of Diddy. He built hip-hop. This can't be true, a defender tweeted, clinging to his legacy. Yet the tide leaned toward Beyoncé, her courage a beacon. Fan edits of her speaking, clips set to her own anthems, spread like gospel, each view amplifying the call for justice. The industry, however, cloaked itself in silence. Jay-Z, a titan with his own history tied to Diddy, posted nothing. His Instagram, a curated void of family photos and Rock Nation promos. Other Bad Boy alumni, Mace, Faith Evans, stayed mute, their silence louder than words. Speculation swirled. Were they complicit, scared, or waiting? Ex-users dissected the quiet, with posts like, "Why hasn't Jay spoken? He knows something." Brands move faster. Ciroc, Diddy's vodka empire, issued a vague statement about reviewing partnerships, while Sean John's retail displays shrank overnight. The distancing was subtle but deliberate, a corporate retreat from a once untouchable mogul. Diddy's own response, a polished tweet, "I'm focused on the future, not false narratives," only fueled the fire, users mocking its detachment. "He's dodging," one post read, pinned to the top of number Diddy exposed. Legal whispers began to surface. A New York law firm, known for high-profile entertainment cases, hinted at pending actions tied to Bad Boy's past contracts. A 2005 lawsuit, once buried, resurfaced in online threads. An artist's claim of coercive practices now seen in a new light. TMZ reported investigations into historical allegations against Diddy, though details remain scarce. The media frenzy fed on every crumb. CNN ran a segment titled "Diddy's Empire Under Siege," while blogs dug into old party footage, zooming in on uneasy faces. The viral firestorm wasn't just about Beyoncé's words. It was a reckoning for an industry built on silence. Anonymous voices grew bolder. A stylist's Instagram story, quickly deleted, read, "I saw things at those parties." The hashtag #Diddy exposed became a digital courtroom, each post a piece of evidence. Beyoncé, watching from afar, felt the weight of her truth ripple outward. She stayed offline, her silence now a shield, but her team noted the surge in support. Fan letters, murals in Houston, posts calling her a hero. Diddy, meanwhile, retreated to his penthouse, his usual swagger dimmed. His empire, once a fortress, now faced a siege, and the industry's silence spoke volumes. The fallout wasn't just a moment, it was a movement, a crack in the facade of untouchable power, with the world waiting for the next voice to rise. The legal storm gathered slowly, but its shadow loomed large. By May 2025, whispers of lawsuits against Sean Combs multiplied. A New York attorney, known for tackling entertainment giants, filed a motion referencing historical misconduct tied to Bad Boy Records, citing coercive contracts and exploitation. Details were scarce, but court filings hinted at multiple plaintiffs, former artists, staff, names still redacted. X buzzed with speculation. Diddy's past is catching up, one post read, linking to a 2005 case that alleged manipulation, now resurfacing with new weight. Federal investigators, per a leaked CNN report, were reviewing financial records tied to Bad Boy's early 2000s deals, including Beyoncé's. No charges were filed, but the scrutiny was relentless, each headline chipping at Diddy's empire. His Ciroc deal teetered, retailers pulled back, and his once lavish parties went quiet. The industry watched, breath held, as the untouchable faced a reckoning that wouldn't fade. Beyoncé, meanwhile, found rebirth in her art. In June 2025, she took the stage at Coachella, her first major performance since the Netflix special. The crowd roared as she stepped into the light, her silhouette commanding, her eyes carrying a new fire. She debuted a song, Unchained, its lyrics raw. "I broke the lock, I found my voice." The performance was electric, her voice cracking with emotion as she locked eyes with fans, their hands raised in solidarity. Tears streaked her face during the bridge, a moment of connection that felt like absolution. She was no longer the guarded queen. She was human, her pain alchemized into power. Backstage, she hugged her dancers, her breath shaky but free. Her new album, announced that night, promised to tell her story, her scars, her triumphs, her truth. Diddy's reckoning grew louder. More voices emerged, anonymous producers, former assistants, posting cryptic stories on X. I saw what he did to her, to others. His empire wobbled, stock in his ventures dipping, but it didn't collapse. He retreated, his Instagram dormant, his defiance muted. Yet the system that propped him up, industry loyalty, fear of speaking out, held firm, a reminder of how deep the roots of power ran. Beyoncé, though, felt relief, a weight lifted after decades of silence. Her scars remained etched in sleepless nights and old journals, but her voice had sparked a fire. Others were stepping forward, their truths building on hers. The cost of truth was steep, trust lost, bridges burned, but it was hers to pay. In the silence of secrets, her voice became the loudest echo.